Let's go!
There's a topic that I've really wanted to talk about over the past week or so, considering some events that have come to light, and it's shockingly about Marvel vs. Capcom 2. I'm going to try to build awareness about Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for a couple of reasons. Number one, if you want to buy Marvel vs. Capcom 2, if you actually want to get a copy of the game in some way, outside of emulating purposes, right? Unless you go and get a Dreamcast emulator, a Naomi emulator, there is no way for you to go and purchase Marvel vs. Capcom 2 unless you go and find an old used version on PlayStation 2, Xbox, or Dreamcast. And if you want to get those versions of the game, they are crazy expensive. The reason this is because Marvel vs. Capcom 2 HD was released by Capcom back in, I believe, 2008 or so. This was an Xbox 360/PS3 version of the game, that one that you see me play on this channel a hell of a lot. One that still actually works online, and one that shockingly is one of the first generation rollback netcode fighting games on consoles, on console hardware. There are other ways to play MVC2 online, but in terms of like rollback netcode, there are no other options, right? MVC2, if you want rollback netcode, the only way that you're going to play it is actually on the classic version of the game on PS3 and 360. What I'm trying to build up awareness for is that Marvel vs. Capcom 2 has not been normally purchasable or available in anything beyond its 720p release back from 2008. It's been 13 years. 13 years since Marvel vs. Capcom 2 has been re-released in any way. I have some arcade machines back here, right? By the way. So these machines, these games actually have rollback netcode. These arcade cabinets from Arcade 1-Up play fantastically online and have fully functioning lobby systems for a wide variety of games. And that leads us to modern day. So today, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is still unavailable. You can't go get a copy of this game. You can't play it on your PlayStation 4. You can't go buy it on your PS3. You can't buy it on your Xbox 360 because they were removed from stores back in 2014, I believe. Back when Capcom essentially lost the licensing rights and the game never came back. The only way that you can get it is through technical piracy, through finding other means of other people having it. And that's about it. Craziest situation. Capcom has a pretty big history of releasing ports and groups of games together, and these games definitely have their share of issues, especially when it came to input delay. There was a lot of content available in Street Fighter 30th Anniversary, and I gave it a lot of praise for that, but I couldn't give it a lot of praise for the fact that it did not feel great to play. Funny enough, the PC version of Street Fighter 30th Anniversary, as well as the Mega Man Legacy / X Collection, they run great on PC. The company that did this was called Digital Eclipse, which brings us to today, where a game like Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is not readily available, where a lot of Marvel vs. Capcoms are essentially stuck on these machines. What happened recently at Digital Eclipse that's worth talking about, and it's this. Recently, Digital Eclipse was celebrating the fact that they became fully funded, raising over $6 million in a very limited period of time, saying that Digital Eclipse is in a funded situation and they'd love to hear thoughts on what games we should go after. Our mission is to re-release, remaster, and reimagine. This means not only documentaries, museums, game improvements, but also sequels and more. We are funded, let's go, and it led to a very large majority of people recommending a huge amount of stuff. There was one that definitely caught my eye, and it was this. I think there's a situation here where Digital Eclipse, even though I have been critical of them in the past, I think is absolutely one of the best teams that can take something like the Marvel vs. Capcom franchise, especially Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and bring it back. And there's, like I said, a couple of reasons for that. Digital Eclipse works in tandem with another company called Other Ocean. They did Ultra Street Fighter 4 when it came out on PlayStation 4. They eventually patched it and got the input lag down. They've also worked on ports of these games too. They've actually worked on, Other Ocean has made versions of Arcade 1-Up. So they have a lot of fighting game experience, which is great. What I'm pleading for is that potentially Digital Eclipse or Other Ocean can do something with Marvel vs. Capcom 2. And this isn't just a management of, oh, we're just going to take the game and do it. No, there's licensing There is rights issues. There is a lot of management that has to go in between all of this stuff. A lot of you guys would say, well, that's a Disney problem. I believe they did the Disney Afternoon Collection. There was a re-release of Disney games that I think Capcom made, and they re-released them recently on almost all platforms. They were the ones that did that. I think there's another team by the name of Koch Media that is UK based, and you might remember they made a little peripheral that was gigantic. They made this huge Capcom arcade stick. It was the logo of Capcom with arcade sticks in the middle, and it's kind of become like a meme. It's infamous, right? There was something very important that was on that machine that had never existed before. The only official released sellable version of Alien vs. Predator Arcade. Somehow, these guys were able to manage the rights of Alien and Predator and Capcom, Disney, Fox, and Capcom, and the rights of those characters therein to get them into one game that would be put on arcade hardware that would release in Europe eventually. So things are definitely possible, right? And I think this is where it boils down to awareness and essentially a lot of hope. I do think Digital Eclipse is probably the best developer out there to bring Marvel vs. Capcom 2 to the forefront. I think that they are aware that some of the efforts of the online can be improved for their fighting games in the future, and I think they would do everything they could to make that shit happen. But the crazy part is MVC2 has not been readily available for a hell of a long time. In fact, we are going on 7 years of you even being able to buy Marvel vs. Capcom 2 in any way. This game is so world-renowned, it's disgusting. Huge Hollywood actors like Michael B. Jordan wishing that PlayStation 5 gets a version of Marvel vs. Capcom 2, and that's the game he's looking for. You get like ESPN last year, I think, with the NBA Finals, and they were making headliner images of the NBA Finals and everyone that was there, and no shit, it was an MVC2 character select screen. So much of Marvel vs. Capcom 2 is ingrained into culture in general that it's kind of mind-blowing. And so many people, legit, anyone especially that grew up around that time frame that might have been casual fighting game fans or just enjoyed arcades or anything like that, Marvel 2 is so world-renowned as being one of the greatest fighting games of all time. Regardless of how good you are at it, regardless of how much you know how busted the game is, regardless of how many sprites they just ripped from stuff and threw into it, regardless if you like the music, regardless if you like the backgrounds, the culture of MVC2 is extremely revered in the video game industry. It's extremely revered throughout the retro market. People love the shit out of that game. And this is why I truly hope Digital Eclipse can be the ones to potentially make Marvel vs. Capcom 2 actually free again, right? This game has been locked in a jail of unreleasability for 7 years, and I truly hopeful that someone out there, especially a dev like Digital Eclipse, Other Ocean, could be the ones to take this game and get it out of the Disney vault or whatever the hell it is, right? Get people talking to each other and actually make something happen, because the likelihood of this happening now is there. The Arcade 1-Up crew did it. They figured out how to get the rights of all these games into these machines, and they're on sale with the approval of Marvel and Capcom. To me, there's definitely a chance for this to exist, but it's also the fact that a lot of people would buy this, right? People want Marvel vs. Capcom 2 to come back in some way, much less have it be re-released in a fashion that allows them to go online with their friends or play in functional lobbies or anything like that. Just imagine if there were things that the community got involved with, like Justin Wong, who already has done some pretty awesome things to sort of spice up the variety of the game. You can play Ratio Marvel 2 if other people are agreeing to do it. Even a mode that supported something like that would be so ridiculously cool, and of course, you would contact some pillars of the community, like Justin Wong, Yipes, get these guys to get their influence on what they think would represent that, just for the sake of having something different than just the usual old Marvel 2 but HD. There's definitely some possibility there to make it amazing. And here's the other crazy thing. The guys that made Marvel vs. Capcom 2 HD back in 2008 was a little company called Backbone Entertainment. And weirdly enough, from what I understand, a lot of ex-Backbone devs ended up moving to Other Ocean back in 2012 when that company went under. After that, Other Ocean became part of Digital Eclipse. I don't know if somewhere down the crazy daisy chain of Marvel vs. Capcom 2 history, the last official released version of the game might reside somewhere in between what this company already is, right? There might be experience already involved of the people that made the last version of Marvel 2 actually working at the company that I'm proposing could potentially free MVC2. Now, I know I'm already going to be putting a lot of pressure on these devs, and I know I've been pretty critical of them for Street Fighter 30th Anniversary in the past, but I think there's a lot of really great aspects of that game, and I think there's a lot of things that can absolutely be improved upon, and I think one of the best companies to do it is easily Digital Eclipse, based on their current situation and their recent success. All things considered, I would like to start a Twitter hashtag and a campaign similar to some efforts for Killer Instinct in the past, which is hashtag free Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Free MVC2 from the jail, from its imprisonment that it's been stuck in for the past 7 years of it being unreleased, unavailable, and unpurchasable, to get as many people to remind Digital Eclipse, Marvel, and Capcom how important Marvel vs. Capcom 2 actually is to you, much less the history of video games. How much do you love Marvel 2? And give them a reason to bring that back. That's my big effort, is just to siphon as many people as possible. A lot of my platform is to get as many people into one focused area as I can. I want to get as many Marvel vs. Capcom 2 fans, people that would be interested in buying a MVC2 re-release on modern day systems or PlayStation 4 or whatnot, you know? Make it with functioning online, slightly better HD visuals, something that would at least allow us to enjoy the game together in the modern day. All things considered, hashtag free MVC2 is going to be how we're going to communicate this stuff. And once I get all this stuff running up on social media, I'm going to ask for your guys' help to get this potentially a thing that'll get trending in some way to get Marvel vs. Capcom 2 back out of jail, where it's been stuck for way too long.